Hey Siri, open Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk running natively on macOS was not on my bingo card when I bought my Mac. It's now just one ka-tink away on the Mac App Store, but I wasn't quite sure how well my Macs could run it. So I got it anyway and jacked into Night City across a range of Macs, from one that doesn't even meet the game's minimum requirements to an M4 Max Mac Studio. If this is not your first time in Night City, cross progression is available on Mac and it's worked perfectly for me to bring over my absolute Cyber Psycho V, which I spent over 100 hours on from my previous playthrough on PS5. Just anything to not get me introduced to Dexter DeShawn again. If you launch Cyberpunk on a MacBook Pro with a Liquid Retina XDR display, you get to see Night City in HDR by default. You won't be seeing the prompt to calibrate your display at first launch because CDPR has gone the extra mile of pre-optimizing the Mac version for Apple displays. This is one of the prettiest games to play in HDR because there's highlights just everywhere. Another feature, which I believe is currently unique to the Mac version, is how when you play with AirPods, it defaults to spatial audio with hit tracking. It does give you incredible spatial awareness, and it is very immersive, especially in busier areas of Night City. You can very precisely place where each sound is coming from. Now, in terms of how the visuals look, as well as the performance, here's the range of Macs we've tested Cyberpunk on. We've got an M2 Max, base M3, M3 Max, M4 Pro, and an M4 Max. While Cyberpunk is a very demanding game, it's also extremely scalable, so even on the less powerful Macs we've tested on, the game still ran smoothly enough for it to be an enjoyable and most certainly playable experience. There's a unique graphics preset on the Mac version called For This Mac, and it's exactly what it sounds like. These are recommended settings specific to the exact Mac you're currently on. Take the M2 Max and M3 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro, for example. Selecting For This Mac will set the resolution to 1728 by 1080 on both MacBooks. Graphics settings are generally high on both, but the resolution scaling is set to a higher maximum on the more powerful M3 Max. When we step up to the M4 Max, we start seeing ultra settings, and it's not shy to bump the resolution up to 1440p. On 4 of the 5 Macs we tested, we saw a minimum of 60 FPS when running the in-game benchmark with the For This Mac preset. The one Mac that did not stay above 60 was the one below minimum requirements, so that's excluded for now. The actual gameplay experience is a faithful reflection of these benchmark results, because frame rates rarely dipped below 60, if ever at all, on the more powerful chips. I did find the For This Mac presets to be a touch on the conservative side, because for the M2 Max, M3 Max, and M4 Max, these systems were comfortably pushing above 60 FPS on the Ultra preset in 1080p. The M4 Pro wasn't too far behind, maintaining a stable minimum of 50 FPS. So then, how does it run on the base M3 with only 8GB of unified memory? The minimum requirement is 16GB of memory, and because of that, I wasn't even sure if it will let me install or run the game. But there turned out to be nothing in the way of that, not even a warning. The For This Mac preset recommended an output resolution of 1800 by 1125. A mix of low and medium settings, and loading a save, I was absolutely surprised by how playable it is and how things didn't look bad at all. I was averaging between 40 and 50 FPS, plus the fact that it's running alone was remarkable enough because the game was not meant to be run with this configuration. And to think that the base M3 chip is capable of this, it's really quite impressive. Very reassuring if you're running it on any of the more powerful chips, and if you're on the M3 or M4 generation of Macs, which supports hardware accelerated ray tracing, you'll see the option to enable that in Cyberpunk. On our M4 Pro, you can realistically target a 30 FPS experience when running the ray tracing medium preset at 1080p. On the M3 Max, you can get similar frame rates, but at the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, which is when reflections start getting ray traced and the game starts to look really, really gorgeous. The M4 Max then is able to drive Ray Tracing Ultra with frame rates in the 40s and 50s. Then there's the atom smasher of ray tracing presets, which is Ray Tracing Overdrive, and this enables the incredibly demanding path tracing mode. Even on the M4 Max, expect to see frame rates into the 20s with path tracing, though it's still worth going on a walk around Night City with this just to see it rendered with ultra realistic lighting. For actual gameplay though, I'd be very happy with Ray Tracing Ultra on something like the M4 Max. At 1080p, you get a very good balance of incredible ray traced visuals and smooth frame rates. You can also choose to harness that power slightly differently if you're willing to forego ray tracing. I've actually been able to get an excellent 4K 60fps gaming experience on the high graphics preset, then switching Metal FX upscaling over to performance on the M4 Max. If you output this to a large 4K TV, it's quite a way to play. Considering I completed my main playthrough on PS5, I can very certainly say that Cyberpunk looks and runs better on my work computer. Something I was quite pleasantly surprised by is if you connect the PS5's DualSense controllers to Mac, the active triggers work in Cyberpunk. You feel that resistance in the triggers as you're driving, the way it kicks when the gears shift, and that very tactile bump as you pull the trigger during combat. This release is undoubtedly a milestone event for gaming on Mac. It's one of the biggest games of today, not just being released, but thoroughly optimized for macOS. I think CDPR did an incredible job making Cyberpunk such a delightful out-of-the-box experience on Mac. One moment I'm finishing an edit in Final Cut Pro, then the next I'm looking at Night City in HDR with spatial audio running fully on battery power. The only drawback is perhaps the way my editor started being able to play Cyberpunk at work, but I think me and Latte are going to let that slide because he's going to edit this video of me playing a lot of Cyberpunk. But this has been Cyberpunk tested on Mac, and I'll see you around.